You need to end generations. This is Inner Thoughts, where we explore everything that can't normally be said. As someone that came from arguably an end of a generation when it comes to his culture, I always seek to challenge the older generation, challenge them in a sense where I challenge their ideals and beliefs. And while this isn't always necessary, and while this isn't honestly something you should proactively do, there are certain times where I feel like the older generation cannot be ignorant. There's a level of understanding, especially when they are of older or elderly status, that they can change their ways, which is understandable depending on the situation. But if that individual, that elderly person, the one that's more matured and cultured in life, still has the capacity to understand, but willingly chooses to ignore it in favor of their own principle or phobias that they cannot bend, that is a form of ignorance, and that is where I seek to challenge it. And the reason for this is because change is not bad, and understanding that your understanding is not limited to what you find is important. Not everything will stay the same. Not everything will work the same. The easiest example of this is buying a house. Before, buying a house was so attainable, but now buying a house is arbitrarily one of the worst decisions you can make, assuming you do not have the financial income of that individual that is over the median wage or is of upper class. Because having a house is effectively a death sentence when it comes to your income and your societal status in the back, but not in the front. And you have to understand that ending generations is very arbitrary. It's not necessarily when you break away from the family or when you break a long-held tradition. Generations end more often than you would think. And it all starts from the mindset. Mindsets change between generations. Mindsets will change from parent to children. And you can argue that their generation ended with that child because that child now has to spur on their next generation. While they may share the same surname and while they may pass on the surname, the family ideals, family traditions, and family phobias that gets passed down is one that they have to culture and almost cultivate themselves in their own light. So while challenging generations is not necessarily always the case, understanding that generations will end is important so that you yourself can be as objective and pragmatic as possible, but also understand where the toxicity of the previous generation ends. And sometimes when it comes to ending and starting a new generation, it starts with you.